months from the November 2026 election when our next governor will be decided here in the state of Wisconsin. So again, much more on that, but wanted to kind of lay out that as something we're tracking for you here on this Friday afternoon. Something else, both here and afar in the sports world of interest to many. We'll start, since this is the Wisconsin Live Desk, up in Titletown with a great shot, a live picture there of Lambeau Field. And more importantly, on the left there, that yellow framed building there is part of Ray Nitschke Field, the training complex for the Green Bay Packers. Day 3 of training camp today. That happened this morning, a practice around 10:30 this morning at Ray Nitschke Field. A lot of fans on hand, especially for this day, because today is also the annual Packers shareholders meeting. So that is coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon, the annual meeting when thousands of people come to Green Bay, of course, prominently showing off their forms, plaques, denoting that they are in fact an owner, however partial, of this NFL franchise, the favorite team here in the state of Wisconsin. The shareholder news and follows stock sale as well. Approximately 5,204,625 shares owned by more than 500,000 different stockholders out there. So a whole lot of people with some investment, even if they don't reap necessarily the financial benefit, but get to say that they are in fact a part owner of the Green Bay Packers. And as you're seeing in this live camera here, lots and lots of people in Titletown today up closer to Lambeau Field for the shareholders meeting. This is also a substantial one because it represents a passing of the baton from the current president of the Packers, Mark Murphy, who has been in that role for quite some time with great success both on the field and off for the Packers as a team, as a franchise. Passing the baton to Ed Policy. Mark Murphy, because of his age and because of the laws of governance with the Green Bay Packers, has to resign as president. Ed Policy, who has been with the team for quite some time in other roles, will take over as the Packers' new president in place of Murphy. So a lot to get to from Titletown today as the Packers hand things over and the team for 2025 continues its work on the field. And then we get you to the other big team throughout the state of Wisconsin, of course. That would be the Milwaukee Brewers. A live look at the roof open at American Family Field, and a game coming soon. A 3:10 first pitch on this Friday afternoon for your Milwaukee Brewers. 20 games above 500 right now. One of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in baseball over a couple months at this point. The Brewers open this series against the Marlins today, but it's not just about the 2025 roster for the Brewers. It's about 25 years of baseball inside that ballpark. This year marks 25 years of what was, of course, Miller Park, now American Family Field, and there will be quite a lot of celebrating today with a whole lot of alumni, some of the fan favorites from over this last quarter century with the crew in town today for the festivities. If you get there early, you can get some great deals before the first pitch on, I believe it was brats and beer, each for $2.50, and then all the different Packers alumni that will be taking part in the festivities today. Perhaps the main event's actually going to happen after the final out is recorded today. Of course, we want to see a good one between the Marlins and the Brewers. Cal Quantrill up against Freddie Peralta, the All-Star, for the crew on the mound today. But after the game, there's going to be this alumni home run derby with some of the biggest bashers of the last 25 years for the Brewers taking part in that alumni home run derby. Think Prince Fielder, Ryan Braun, Niger Morgan. We see if he can hang with some of the big boys, and many, many more. Carlos Gomez and others taking part in the festivities today. Should be a really fun day over there at the ballpark, and not quite as hot as it has been the last couple days for the folks tailgating and sticking around for all the fun inside of American Family Field. So that's a little bit of the roundup, the news, the sports happening on this Friday afternoon for you, and a lot else that we're tracking here on the Wisconsin Live Desk that we want to bring you over the next couple hours here on Fox Local. But let's get to some of the fun today. We're going to use an absolutely stunning live camera from up in the skies. This is one of our FOX6 drones flown by our pilot on the microphone for us as well at the same time. Jeff Frings, a very talented photojournalist and many writes for us here at Fox 6 here in Milwaukee. Jeff, why don't you tell us where you are today? You're up in Port Washington for a really fun event. What's going on in this gorgeous shot we're getting of this ship in the foreground?
Yeah, good afternoon, Carl. There are three tall ships that are taking turns taking people out into the lake. They're boarding one here, just about to leave. It looks like another one that has, I think this one's coming back in. I'm just going to do a little zoom in here, and the drone has a kind of an abrupt zoom, but there's one coming in, and you can see just off on the right, there's one. I don't know if they're going out or coming in, but I mean, it couldn't be a more gorgeous day for this because it's like mid to upper 70s, sunny, very few clouds, light breeze, and there's a pretty good crowd for these tall ships today too. There's a lot of people, looking for parking. Oh yeah, here we go. We're just leaving right now.
Oh, there it
So
is, yeah.
you can see there's a fair amount of people on each boat and going out for a nice little afternoon cruise.
Pretty solid, and yeah, you can see from the flags as well a decent breeze once they get the
Yeah, and you
sails
can
up
see
on
there's
that boat.
all three of them are in the shot here. The one way off in the
Nice.
distance, I can zoom in and show that one here. The one that you see there, and then there it is. There's the other one way out
Oh,
there
that's
with the
so
seagull
cool.
flying in front of it there. So that's
And you get the
one.
breakwater and everything there. That is
Here's the
absolutely
other,
gorgeous.
and then the other one. Yeah, it would not be a bad place to be on a day like today.
No, not at
I'm not
all.
sure how many they get out there on each boat, but I don't know. It looks like, trying to count as we're going here, 20, 30 people maybe.
Tough assignment for our guy Jeff today, getting to fly the drone above this gorgeous shot from Port Washington. Jeff, maybe
Yeah,
for the folks who are a little bit more tech savvy, perhaps watching us here on Fox Local, can you describe your setup right now? So you're obviously on solid ground, on land, and then you have the drone pretty high up in the sky above you. How are you doing all this, bringing us this live from the sky reporting in Port Washington?
well, the drone right now is only at 52 feet. I had it up a little higher. For solo flying for our drones, the company has a limitation, but I could go higher. I'm just kind of leery about doing that right now because there are a fair amount of seagulls around here, and when you get to a certain height, they don't like it at all. So, oh, they're raising the sails. They're getting ready to raise
Oh,
the
neat.
sails here. So I've got a Mavic 3 Pro with an RC Pro controller, and then take the video from that controller into our live device that we feed back through cell signals back to the station, and then I'm talking to you on a Zoom link for the audio.
The amazing technology
So
of
it's
2025
pretty
as we
cool.
see some of the classic tech of what helped explore the world there, right? With some of the sailboats out and about
Right.
on Lake Michigan today. I don't know if you got the chance to chat with either organizers or some of the people going, but what's the appeal? What's kind of the draw for folks? Is it people who are very familiar with sailing or folks who are just trying to get a first experience perhaps out there on the water?
I have not had a chance to talk to any of the folks that are going out today or any of the organizers, but I do remember when we had the tall ship in Milwaukee, the Dennis Sullivan, I got the opportunity to be on that once. And it's just a cool, kind of like you said, takes you back to kind of days of old back in the day. And you see kind of how they did it back then. And it's just a different, I mean, anytime you're out on the water on a day like today, I mean, there's definitely an appeal there. It's a beautiful day. You're out on the water. You get a view back of the land that you don't normally get. You see how they're working these ships with these giant sails, and it's a cool experience that most people don't get on a regular basis.
Yeah, the coordination and everything, and you kind of have these mental gymnastics about keeping your eyes on all different parts of the ship, and each rope has to be in the right place and everything. Since you mentioned the Dennis Sullivan, that tall ship that used to be docked at Discovery World, I'll mention a quick story, Jeff. Back when I was doing the kind of around town reporting for our morning show, Fox 6 Wake Up, I actually got to climb up the ladder to the very top of one of those masts on the Dennis Sullivan. I'm not a very squirmy guy. I'm not afraid of heights, kind of like adventure and everything like that. That was one of the few things that got me kind of hesitant up there because you really don't realize just how thin that ladder gets at the very top. And then when you're actually up there at the top, how much there is swaying back and forth as you really, really hope you're locked in carefully there.
Yeah, I'll stay on the deck. You can go up on the top of the mast. That's fine by me. It is pretty tall, and I don't know the specs on these boats, but I get the feeling that the Dennis Sullivan might have been taller and bigger than these, but Yeah, that's a long way up. I'll stay on the deck. I know how to handle myself on a sailboat as long as I'm on the deck.
You'll send the drone up, and while you keep your 2 feet on solid
Yeah,
ground there.
I can get the same view from the drone.
For our viewers
Not that I'm
watching
opposed
here,
to,
right,
scaring myself
right.
a little bit once in a while, but I don't know about that.
For our viewers watching here, I'm reading from the Port Washington, the Visit Port Washington website, the tourism board for Port. So this is the tall ship experience coming back to Port Washington all weekend too. So if you're watching here on the live desk and you think, man, I want to check that out, well, you still have time. This runs through Sunday up in Port Washington. 3 different tall ships. They haven't been back, these historical ships, in Port Washington since 2014, so over a decade since they've been back in this harbor on those waters out there on Lake Michigan. So pretty cool for Port to get them back. The 3 different ships, the Liberty Clipper, the When and If, boat names are always the best, right? And then the Appledore 4, which I believe is the one that we are just watching now in the foreground here. I think I caught a
Yep.
bit of that on the
Yep.
bow, the stern.
That would be the stern.
I'm outing myself as not a boat person here, Jeff. And then if people are watching there and want to go check it out actually in person, despite the amazing pictures Jeff is bringing us here today, they actually do a combination of things. So there's deck tours on the different ships. So if you don't want, to get out on the water, you can do that and still experience it. There are the daytime sails that we're watching right now for those different groups out there on the water. And I think this is pretty cool, especially at a great place to watch a sunset like Port Washington, a twilight sail as well. So you could be out there on Lake Michigan as the sun is setting back there beyond the land, beyond the harbor. So there's one of those coming up tonight on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, a number of different options for you, including a pair of twilight sails, a day sail, and then on Sunday, 2 more of those day sails. So a lot of chances for people to get out and enjoy it. What
I like
kind of
the
strikes
twilight
you?
sail, Carl.
The twilight sail, yeah.
Do you
This is
see
our.
anything that says anything about champagne and oysters?
Oh, let me look for you. You're hearing the voice of Cale Zimney, our chief photojournalist here, who's running the booth for us today. Let me do some searching for our resident foodie and see if there's anything like that.
I'm not saying it's going to be there, but that's just what popped into my head.
I mean, I'd love it. Unfortunately, when I click this,
He's not saying it's going to be there. He just wants to know if he needs to come up here.
I mean, by all means, bring some to our guy Jeff once he's off the clock there, right?
I mean, twilight, champagne, oysters on a sailboat. I mean, that seems like the best combo.
Sounds pretty solid, I would say that.
Let's see if I can find the other one out here in the distance. Oh, there he is.
I'm glad, though. That's a good point, though, Jeff. It was so foggy this morning, certainly in Milwaukee. I'm not sure what it was like up in Port Washington, but some of our tower cameras, you could barely make out the Milwaukee skyline. The fog was so thick. So clearly a little bit of that way out there on Lake Michigan, but much, much clearer conditions now for the folks out on the boats.
Yeah, from the time I got up here, it's not completely clear, but there's just some high cirrus clouds. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah. What kind of strikes you about seeing these boats in operation, in action here? I'm always curious. You have a good eye for these things. If people are not aware, Jeff is also a pilot as well, so very comfortable around different modes of transportation, so to speak. What kind of strikes you about these giant ships?
Well, I also raced on a sailboat that a coworker had back in the day for a number of years.
Oh, no way.
And it's what strikes me is they're bigger. I mean, we got to the point, the crew that we had got to a point where we were pretty good. It would, normally have commands of when you're going to jibe or when you're going to come about, when you're going to move the sails. And we got to the point where we didn't even have to do that because you have a competitive advantage if you don't have to say out loud when you're going to do things, because when you're on the water, your voice carries. And so if you don't have to tell your opponent when you're about to jibe or come about, you just look at each other and know. But that was with a sail that's probably, I don't even know, an eighth of the size of these sails or a quarter of the, that's a totally different thing. That's what strikes me as the size difference. And if they're anything like the Dennis Sullivan, like I remember the Dennis Sullivan, is that let me see if I can zoom in and kind of get a look here. The way that they raise them is different. I don't know if they have, like on the Dennis Sullivan, I'm pretty sure they didn't have the modern winches that we had. There were different ways that you would, hoist the sails without as much mechanical advantage, and then different ways where you would hold the sail in position, as opposed to like the sailboat that I was on. It was a winch, and you put it in there and you'd pull on it, but then you'd have a lever where you just turn it, and it would increase your mechanical force that you're putting on it, so you didn't have to work quite as hard, and it still would give you the same effect. And
Yeah.
so I'm interested here to see if they're bringing this in. I noticed when they were loading them up, when they were bringing them from one side of the little channel here in the harbor to the other, they had a couple of little tenders that they were using to kind of move them from one side to the other, almost like a mini version of a tugboat kind of thing. They weren't moving it with that, but they were kind of guiding it.
Okay, here's a question too, Jeff. Since we're getting a shot in the background now at the angle you're at right now, is the famous lighthouse in Port Washington, is it under like construction or renovation or something right now? It appears that way.
Sure looks like it's under some kind of a tarp. I'm not sure why, but let me see if I can zoom in here.
Because that's kind of the iconic sunrise shot you'll get up there in port with the sun.
It's not quite as
rising.
iconic if it's wrapped in a black tarp.
Yeah, they must be doing some kind of renovations on that.
All right, and it looks like the boat we're looking at there from the flag is the When If.
There you go, the When and If. Very nice.
And I'm going to try and tilt down here and see if I can see them working. I don't know if they're going to drop the sail in the back there or not.
Yeah,
but they obviously dropped that first one, and I mean they're a lot bigger. And the sails that on a regular normal size sailboat that I was on, or that most people would be on, I don't know if you can see it on here, but at the top of the sail there's like a beam, a piece of wood. It looks like there's no beam on the top of a sail on a normal sailboat. That's just for that type of sailboat that they have, I would guess, to keep it in shape.
Well, and obviously such a history on Lake Michigan with shipping and what kind of put so many of these different cities, Milwaukee included, on the map, the literal map here. It's kind of neat to see some of the history of these ships too, the 3 different tall ships up in port today. All right, for our guy Cale, who was wondering a little bit more information on the different sailing
Hey guys,
options.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. I'm going to have to land the drone here temporarily just because I'm running out of battery, but I can come back up if you want me to.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll let you go get recharged. Kind of a cool shot watching you come to land too. Here on the live desk, Jeff giving us all kinds of insight and great shots along Lake Michigan there in Port Washington. Thank you, sir. Hopefully we can catch you maybe later in the day on the live desk.
Okay.
That is so cool, watching our own Jeff Rings, a very safe, smooth landing there along Port Washington. And as I mentioned, you can check it out the next couple days. Okay, Cale, if you're listening back there in our control booth, some information, daytime versus twilight sailing tickets, which are still available, by the way, for both Saturday and Sunday up there in Port Washington, where we were just checking out. Daytime sails about an hour and a half in length. You get all kinds of unique views of Port Washington, the harbor, get to feel the breeze out there on the water, watch the sails shimmy against the blue sky, they say on the website. And then for the twilight sails, maybe, Cale, this is what you were looking for. Just as the sun begins to set, they last roughly 2 hours in length, sometime between 6 and 7 p.m., then the 2-hour sailing. Enjoy the sun setting over Port Washington as you experience the incredible glow of the sunset over our beautiful city. Twilight sails, Cale, offer a romantic, breathtaking atmosphere, ideal for couples, friends, or anyone who loves sunsets. Ooh, all right. Am I selling it for you?
But I'm still waiting for the oysters.
Yeah, sorry, it doesn't say anything about food and drink, but maybe you arrange that for before or after the sail out there, and you'll be in good shape. All right, I think we have to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. What a way to get us started here on a Friday afternoon. All kinds of news, some sports updates as well coming for you in this afternoon session of the Wisconsin Live Desk. And something I don't think we have had before, a live report with our drone in the air above 3 giant tall ships on display and in action up there in Port Washington. Who knows what we'll find on the other side of this break.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh back with you here on this Friday afternoon, 12:53. Having a lot of fun already here on today's edition of the Live Desk with that great shot from Port Washington. I thought this was a cool one as well. This is a live camera that we have from our Esterbrook Park tower camera, the big broadcast tower you'll see if you're driving around the Milwaukee area, but almost looks like we're in the clouds here, right? It's been an interesting morning weather-wise with all the fog that was here early. Now as we get into the afternoon, a lot of that's burned off, but still obviously some low either fog or low hanging clouds there. That tower is so tall that we kind of get the view of the blue skies above and a little sliver of what I believe would be Shorewood out there below the clouds as well. So yeah, a lot of cool things to check out here on this Friday afternoon. Forgot what day it was. It's been a long week, but here we go. One other thing I want to tell you about right now, a little bit of an update, more serious topic from City Hall there on the right, and a bit of a back and forth between the Milwaukee Police Association, the union, when it comes to Milwaukee Police representing officers and members of the department, while the MPA is coming out against the negotiating of the city of Milwaukee when it comes to new contracts for Milwaukee police officers. So from the title of this statement from the union coming out today, just within the last hour or so, its title is "City's Labor Contract Tactics Are a Betrayal of Milwaukee Police Officers." And then in part it goes on to say, the Milwaukee Police Association strongly condemns the city of Milwaukee's ongoing and unacceptable refusal to settle a fair contract for its police officers. The city of Milwaukee's refusal to settle a fair contract is not just unacceptable, it's a calculated insult to the brave and honorable officers who protect this city. And that statement goes on from there, quite lengthy. You can find it, I believe, on our website, fox6now.com, if you want to check out the full statement. But already we're also getting a response from the mayor's office. So that's why I'm showing you City Hall here in this live picture on this Friday afternoon. Already a response from the mayor's spokesperson saying the mayor's office strongly disagrees with the characterizations, in the MPA statement. The city is engaged in ongoing discussions. Rather than public posturing, the city is focused on resolving any differences at the negotiating table. So there you go. It's not exactly cordial between the police union and the city right now, trying to negotiate new contracts for Milwaukee police here in the city. And of course, this comes just so short on the heels of the death of Milwaukee police officer Kendall Corder, a time when we saw members of the union, members of the city, and the police department, of course, all coming together to mourn the loss of that officer, that tragic incident, and so much of the city showing their support for the Milwaukee Police Department. Though some of the news coming out of that was the fact that Officer Corder was stationed in District 2, but responding to a call in District 3. And even at the time, the union was kind of calling on the city to up the staffing when it comes to the Milwaukee Police Department, so you wouldn't get as many officers like that, as we see a bird buzzing the camera there. So many officers operating across district lines, perhaps neighborhoods they're not as familiar with. The city and the mayor have said they have done everything in their power to try to raise the recruitment levels for the Milwaukee Police Department, but it's just kind of the fact right now that they are not getting the full classes of new recruits that they would need to kind of keep up with some of those staffing numbers, despite many efforts to raise pay, to recruit officers from other departments with benefits and transfer bonuses and the like. So now we see it today, a bit more of the back and forth between the city of Milwaukee and the police union representing Milwaukee police officers, as their contract negotiations are not exactly going smoothly right now. Now, perhaps some of that is negotiating and posturing, or perhaps it's a sign of a bit of a fractured relationship there. If you want to see the full statement from the Milwaukee Police Association, you can check it out on our website. The MPA, it ends the statement, "Will not be deterred. We will continue to fight for a contract that reflects the professionalism and sacrifice of Milwaukee's police officers. The mayor and the common council must answer one question: who do you stand with? clearly the community stands with their police. That's, again, the statement, the end of it, from the police union on this a bit of a divisive topic right now in Milwaukee. We want to give you a live look at the White House as well on this Friday afternoon in our nation's capital. Some notable developments today as President Donald Trump is on his way to Scotland. He left Friday. He's on his way. His family business is also preparing for a mid-August opening of a new golf course in Aberdeenshire, billed as the greatest 36 holes in golf. And the president, in his many real estate endeavors, does have a number of different places and locations in Scotland. This is also a business trip for the president, so while he is there, he will talk trade with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, a meeting that he says will take place at, quote, probably one of my properties, referring to his multiple golf courses and resorts there in Scotland in the United Kingdom. Now, this week's trip overseas with the sprawling advisors along with it is also trying to help show off some of those golf destinations, demonstrating how the president has increasingly become comfortable kind of mingling the governing pursuits, his role as commander-in-chief, the leader of this country, with also promoting some of his family's business interests at the same time. So we'll see what comes of that. The president left this morning. We will see where it goes from here, this visit to Scotland over the weekend for the president, as well as a planned meeting on trade with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. All right, as we approach the 1 o'clock hour, another chance to take a quick break for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. 2 minutes and we'll be right back at it, bringing you the latest news from around Milwaukee, the Midwest, the country, and today, the world.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh joining you just past the 1 o'clock hour. I'll be with you here until about 1:30 or so. Sam Kramer joining the Live Desk today for that second hour from 1:30 to 2:30, as we do each and every Monday through Friday here on Fox Local, as well as the Fox 6 Milwaukee YouTube channel. We showed you that picture of City Hall and some of the issues that the mayor and common council are dealing with here in the city of Milwaukee. We want to take you out west now to Madison and to the Capitol Capitol building today because of a very important piece of legislation that is being reintroduced. And let's bring in our Bria Jones, who's covering this story for us today. Bria, I'll make sure your microphone is up. There we go. This is something that you have covered repeatedly over the years. Representative Sheila Stubbs has been pushing for a creation of a task force, something that has had its different cycles of life, and she has tried to bring back and back again with this most recent effort now. Why don't you tell people what the goal of this is and why this is so important to Representative Stubbs?
Well, good evening, Carl. We are joining you from the west wing of the state capitol. As you mentioned, Representative Sheila Stubbs, she is reintroducing this bill for the third time. I want you to just take a look at some of the signage. We're talking about the Missing and Murdered African-American Women and Girls Task Force in Wisconsin. You can see right here on the sign, this bill was first introduced in 2021. And Representative Stubbs, she is trying to bring new life into this bill because she says black women in Wisconsin are disproportionately impacted by gun violence. I want you to just take a walk with me at some of the signage here. They have some very interesting statistics here. 90,000 black women and girls in the U.S. were missing in 2020. That's according to the National Crime Information Center. 33%, they say there was a nationwide increase of 33% in homicide rates of black women and girls from 2019 to 2020. Now, that is according to The Guardian. So these are statewide statistics that they have provided here as they are trying to push forward this task force. I want to show you some of the faces. These are cases that we have been following closely. This is Lashiki Hill. She is from Racine. I've had a chance to speak with her mother and her son about a year ago. They are still looking for answers when it comes to her disappearance and her whereabouts. So, of course, anyone watching with any information, of course, contact the Racine Police Department because this is still a very open and active investigation. And I also want you to take a look behind me. This is a case we also are very familiar with, and that is the case of Sade Carlina Robinson. We know this 19-year-old woman, she was last seen on a first date back in April of 2024. We now know that Maxwell Anderson, he has been convicted in her death. Sade, sadly, she was killed and mutilated after a first date. That is what we learned from prosecutors during the trial of her now convicted killer. So again, this is a task force. This is an effort that has been in the works for years. We have the microphone set. We have people here waiting. Take a look at the media here. We're all here. And of course, we will bring you this press conference live at about 1:15. I'll send it back to you.
Well, Bria, if you don't mind, I have a couple follow-up questions off of that. Certainly, Sade Robinson, I know a case that you covered so closely and got to know her mother quite well through your reporting. I remember it was the day of the verdict, early June. We were all part of that coverage here at Fox 6.
Yes.
And Representative Stubbs was part of that. She was standing right next to Sade Robinson's mother, Ms. Scarborough, there, and you could tell how much that meant to Sade's mom. So what has that relationship been like in terms of bolstering Representative Stubbs' efforts in keeping the dream of this task force alive?
Well, Sade's mother, Sheena Scarborough, she has started the Sade's Voice Foundation. And of course, we know that she will be here speaking today because this is a cause that is near and dear to her heart. She has started her own foundation rallying behind this cause, just trying to raise awareness about the disappearance and the violence that is happening to black women, not only in Milwaukee, but of course, the entire state of Wisconsin and the country. We are expecting to hear from her today. She's been reaching out to me just over the last 2 weeks, telling me about her excitement, just anticipating this moment, the opportunity to speak to the crowd here, to rally behind a cause that is near and dear to her heart. As you mentioned, when that verdict for Maxwell Anderson was read, Sheila Stubbs, state representative, she was there. She was also saying she was beside Sade Robinson's mother. We saw her at the press conference. We had a chance to speak with her after that verdict was read. So we know this is a bond, this is a relationship that has been in the works for a while. And I can say, just as a reporter myself, whenever I cover the case of a missing person in Milwaukee, especially a missing black woman, a missing girl, of Representative Sheila Stubbs, her office, they're reaching out, they're wanting to connect with those families that need help, they need assistance.
I know on the a number of those different boards and signs that you've shown us, a lot of different numbers, but one of them that always gets brought up is especially stark. This is from Columbia researchers. The time period of 2019 to 2020, black women in Wisconsin were 20 times more likely to be murdered than white women. And the researchers said that was actually the worst disparity in the country of any other state. The goal of the task force, I'll ask kind of a two-part question. First and foremost, what have you heard in terms of why it has not happened yet? What has happened in those halls in Madison that has not allowed this task force to be seen through to fruition quite yet?
Well, just hearing from Representative Stubbs, so she was able to join Wake Up this morning during the 6 o'clock hour, and she touched on just not having the support to previously get this bill pushed forward. And to the second part of your question, they're going to, of course, have state legislators, they're going to have legal experts, they want to have law enforcement involved, and they also want to have people that are experts when it comes to gender violence.
So the goal of the task force then, I think you just touched on it there, but it would be to study, to look at, try to come up with solutions for kind of that root issue?
Yes, exactly. They want to come up with solutions to make sure that that alarming statistic that you just read, they want to make sure that that number comes down and that black women are just not disproportionately impacted by gun violence.
A last question for you,
So
Bria,
that is what the focus, the goal of this task force is.
Yeah, I know you're about to get set up for that, and we want that to be something we can carry live here on the live desk as well. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking over your shoulder as well. What is your impression of Representative Stubbs and just her ability to stay driven, to stay determined when it comes to seeing this through, even with previous experiences that her dream of seeing this task force come to fruition has not happened yet? What have you made of her determination to see this through?
Obviously, Carl, as you mentioned, this is something that's been ongoing since 2021. So we're talking about 4 years later. She still has not given up. She's trying to breathe new life into this task force, hoping to get this legislation moved forward. And as I previously mentioned, when we talk about just the work behind the scenes, reaching out to, I'm sure, other reporters of the market, other media, trying to make sure that she can connect with the family of these victims, such as Sade Robinson's mother, Sheena Scarborough, the family of Lashiki Hill out in Racine. So again, she's doing the work behind the scenes to connect with these families of these missing and women, these black women, these women of color who are in danger, and she's reaching out to those families even sometimes after the tragedy takes place. I had an instance of I believe a 15 or 16-year-old mother who was shot and killed in Milwaukee. She reached out to me trying to get in contact with that family, just trying to get some assistance for I believe, a 4-month-old baby that young teen mother left behind. So this is someone that is doing the work, obviously, not just inside of the state capitol, but reaching out to reporters such as myself, trying to make those connections with the families that are hurting behind all of this violence.
And of course, putting a human face to those statistics as well and helping humanize the issue at that level as well. All right, Bria, thank you very much. We'll let you get set up because I know this is about 5 minutes away or so. Appreciate you joining us and giving us a preview of what we're about to hear on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Well, thank you for your time, Carl.
All right, anytime. Bria is covering a story, you know it's going to be a powerful one for us. We're going to let her get set up now, and again, that is supposed to start around 1:15, so just about 5 minutes away. That's just enough time for us to take another short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Hopefully be in place for you as soon as Representative Stubbs and the other people that you heard mentioned there, including the mother of Sade Robinson, Sheena Scarborough, step to that podium in Madison at the state capitol. So a quick break here on the Live Desk, and we will try to bring that to you momentarily once we return.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
I'm back here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. A couple updates we want to bring you before we get you back to Madison for that press conference and briefing that Bria just told us about there from the state capitol. I'm going to pop up another picture, a live picture of the White House, because this pertains to a number of different updates from the Trump administration. So a couple different things just came across as breaking news, so we want to bring that to you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk while the president himself is still on his way to Scotland. First and foremost, this was just in a breaking news alert from the Associated Press. The Education Department says it will release billions in remaining withheld grant money for schools. So it remains to be seen. There was quite a bit of pushback when the Education Department was believed to be holding on to grant money that had already been determined to go to schools. And there's kind of separate issues here. The Education Department and the Trump administration have certainly been very adamant about withholding federal grant money to colleges and universities. There was a separate issue withholding public money to K through 12 schools throughout the country. And this just in, again, the Education Department says it will release billions in remaining dollars withheld grant money for schools. So it remains to be seen if all of that will be going back to the schools or what exactly happening. That headline just came across moments ago. The other thing that just came across all of seconds ago, in fact, is that Department of Justice officials, again under the Trump administration, have finished their questioning of Ghislaine Maxwell. Her attorney exited a federal courthouse around 12:30 today. That would be Eastern time. So yeah, just before 11:30 or so out here in Central Time Zone. The attorney in this case, David Marcus, was questioned repeatedly about whether Maxwell herself was seeking a presidential pardon, calling President Donald Trump the ultimate deal maker repeatedly throughout. But her attorney said, quote, "There have been no asks and no promises. We haven't spoken to the president or anybody about a pardon just yet," but did acknowledge that the president would have the power, potentially, to free his client. Ghislaine Maxwell was the associate, a long time believed to be romantically involved with Jeffrey Epstein, and of course the Epstein files have created quite a fissure in the Republican Party based on what was supposed to be released at one point, the Attorney General Pam Bondi saying she had files on her desk, a list, so to speak, but we have never seen that documentation. And then the Department of Justice making that request to question Ghislaine Maxwell and try to find out a bit more about some of the connections that Jeffrey Epstein, the late financier and convicted sex offender, would have had with different people. So that is the update. DOJ officials have finished their questioning. Remains to be seen what we will learn of that questioning. The House of Representatives, the House Speaker Mike Johnson decided to send the House on an early break after some members of the Republican Party were looking for the full release of some of those files and documentation from the DOJ investigation. So a bit of an update there coming from the Capitol, while we are also watching a number of other things. And I want to bring this back to Madison. Again, a live look there inside that picture of Sade Robinson, who recently received some form of justice with the conviction of Maxwell Anderson for first-degree intentional homicide. That conviction, the verdict handed down in early June after she went on a date with Maxwell Anderson and ultimately did not survive. You're seeing people continue to come into that room with more pictures. You saw missing there, just the number of different examples that we are seeing of missing or endangered black women in the state of Wisconsin. And Representative Sheila Stubbs there in Madison as well, as she has been championing this effort, trying to bring awareness to this and trying to push for the third time now for the creation of a task force in Wisconsin that would deal directly with that issue. So as people are getting in there, you see the Attorney General, Josh Kaul, also in the room as well, joining Representative Stubbs. The farthest it got was it actually did this effort pass the state assembly in 2024. Representative Stubbs, of course, a part of that assembly, but then stalled in the state Senate. And that's about as far as we've gotten until this renewed effort now following the conviction of Maxwell Anderson, that jury finding him guilty of killing and dismembering Sade Robinson in early June. Today, we are also expected to hear from the mother of Sade Robinson, Sheena Scarborough, who has been closely tied to Representative Sheila Stubbs. Let's listen in live.
Thank you all for being here today. We are gathered here today on a bill that I worked very hard on getting done, the Missing and Murdered African American Women and Girls Task Force bill. So we're going to unveil that bill. We have advocates, we have organizations, we have victims' families here today. And so we have a list of speakers. We're going to get through our speakers. At the end of our presentation, we'll certainly open it up for questions. We're going to start with Bishop Dr. Godfrey A. Stubbs, the senior pastor of End Time Ministries International, with an invocation.
Thank you, Thank you, Representative Stubbs. Sacred text records, "Behold how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before your presence with heavy heart, lifting up in prayer all those young women, individuals, African American women and girls who are missing or have been affected by violence and murder. We ask for your divine protection over them, for the safe return to those who are lost. Surround those in distress with your angels, offering comfort and courage in their darkest moment. We also lift up the task force and all those that are dedicated to finding justice for the missing and the families of victims. Grant them wisdom, strength, and unwavering resolve as they seek to uncover the truth and bring solace to grieving hearts. Heavenly Father, equip them with the resources and insight needed to fight against the injustice that have caused so much pain. Please, O God, bring peace and comfort to the families and loved ones who are enduring this unimaginable sorrow. May they find strength in each other and feel your reassuring presence, knowing you are with them in their struggle. Lord, in your infinite mercy, we ask that you bring awareness, healing, and resolution to this vital issue. May we all work together to create a world where every woman and girl is valued, protected, and free from violence. Your words state, loving Master, that weeping may endure but a night, but joy comes in the morning. Give this family and all families the joy that they await for. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop Dr. Godfrey Stubbs. And it's my honor now to talk to you in detail about this legislation. Good afternoon. First, give honor to God, who is the center of my life. I make no apologies for who I am, and I make no apologies for what I believe in. I am State Representative Sheila Stubbs, and I represent the beautiful 78th Assembly District, which is comprised of the south and east portions of Madison, the city of Monona, a portion of the village of McFarland, and the town of Blooming Grove. I would first like to thank Attorney General Josh Call, Sheena Scarborough, mother of Sade Robinson, Adriana Reams, sister of Sade Robinson, President of the Dane County chapter of the NAACP, President Greg Jones, Wisconsin State Social Action Coordinator of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Angela Arrington, Bishop Dr. Godfrey Stubbs, Senior Pastor at End Time Ministries International, Ms. Tanisha Howard, mother of Janiah Walker, Chapter President Stephanie Bradley Wilson of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Psi Omega Chapter, Madison Police Department Acting Chief John Patterson, and my legislative colleagues that are standing with me on today, for taking the time to amplify and to bring awareness to the crisis of missing and murdered African American women and girls in our state. I also want to thank all the members of the media who are present because we know from statistics the media is 4 times less likely to cover a report of a missing African American person. Today I stand before you to say that this is my 3rd attempt, I said the 3rd time works, in this Capitol to try and get a critical piece of legislation passed into law. I am grateful for this bipartisan support, and I want to thank my co-authors of this legislation, Representative Pat Snyder, Senator Jesse James, and Senator LaTanya Johnson. When I was a young girl, I remember being drawn and walking into the store and seeing pictures of missing persons on bulletin boards in grocery stores. I felt like a magnet being pulled to those bulletin boards, and I took the time to look at every person that was missing, hoping that when I returned, something had happened. I remember seeing the faces on milk cartons when I was in school, as I was drinking my milk and eating my lunch. I remember being terrified by the news of the Atlanta child murderers from 1979 to 1981, where kids that looked just like me were being abducted and murdered. As of 2020, according to The Guardian, Wisconsin had the highest homicide victimization rate for Black women and girls at 20.2 out of 100,000, a rate which has doubled from previous years, and that rate was 10.1 out of 100,000. Something is happening. And 2020 nationally, 90,333 Black women and girls were missing, according to the National Crime Information Center. And 5 Black women were murdered every day, according to The Guardian. According to The Guardian, there was a nationwide increase of 33% in the homicide rate of Black girls and women from 2019 to 2020. According to The Guardian, nearly a third of the Black women were killed in 2020 in the United States knew the person that murdered them. Since January 21 of 2022, I have been standing and I have been sounding the alarm across the state of Wisconsin, sharing the news of these depressing disparities and connecting with families who have been directly impacted by the increased level of violence. And I stand here today to give my prayers, to give my condolences, and to tell these families that you have a fighter in your state capital who hears you, who will continue to stand for you, and remember the names of your loved ones. I want to thank Attorney General Josh Call for requesting $80,200 for fiscal year 26 and $99,500 in fiscal year 27 in our state budget to staff this task force. And I want to thank Governor Tony Evers for including that amount in his executive budget. But unfortunately, the Joint Committee on Finance voted to remove that funding out of our state budget. Shameful, unacceptable. So I'm back once again to demand that this task force be created and that it receives the appropriate funding, and I got some help standing with me today. Last session, this bill was unanimously voted out of the Assembly Committee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety and passed on the Assembly floor. It was referred to the Senate Committee on Government Operations, where the chair, former Senator Dewey Strobel, refused to give this bill a hearing. I stand here today to say, through the advocacy of my office, through the supporters across the state of Wisconsin, with our national partners, we got to get this bill removed. We were able to get the bill removed from the committee. And we were able to give so much force and so much attraction, and thank you, media, for covering it, that we were able to get the bill reassigned to the committee it initially should have been assigned to, which was the Senate Committee on Mental Health, Substance Abuse Prevention, children and families, which is where it should have started initially. So that tells me that was a tactic to delay this legislation. It was unanimously voted out of the Senate Committee on Mental Health, Substance Abuse Prevention, Children and Families, and yet, it was never scheduled for a hearing on the Senate floor. So I'm left to ponder what happened. It passes unanimously, but can't even get scheduled to the floor? Can anyone tell me why this critical legislation could not get scheduled? Can you tell these families why their loved one was not important enough to at least get a hearing? It is not fair to these victims and their families that they have to continue to wait for this legislature to do something. How much more longer must we wait before the state that we live in decides to do something with the worst disparity in the nation? Once again, this task force will be created by 17 members. This task force has multiple purposes because there's so much that is happening in the state of Wisconsin that have led us to these disparities. This task force will improve data collection. The task force will develop measures to address and reduce violence. This task force will understand the role of policies and institutions, and it will develop measures for victims and their families and their communities. This is, today, another call to action. I am asking for your support on every single one of my colleagues. I thank you, each of you that's standing here, because I want you to know it's not easy to stand up for something you believe in. Not in this building. But I believe that the people who sent me here needs me to be that voice. And I'll continue to be that voice if I have to do it by myself. But today, we say no more to violence facing African American women and girls. We say no more to the disappearance of our loved ones. We say no more to the lack of resources, the lack of awareness, the lack of support for the issues that have impacted so many of Wisconsinites across the state. So I stand here again, third time. I'm demanding that we get answers. I'm demanding that we get justice. I'm demanding that this bill be heard in both houses and passed in both houses, because it's time that this bill becomes law. How many more victims do we need in this state before we do something? So I am requesting that anyone across the state of Wisconsin who is experiencing the loss of their missing or murdered family member to reach out to my office. I need to connect with you. And again, I thank you for being here, and I want to thank everyone of my colleagues that's standing here today. We have our Senator Melissa Radcliffe. Raise your hand, all my colleagues. Representative Viney, Representative Renuka, Representative Goodwin, Representative Tara Johnson, and I don't know, Senator Drake. Yes, I want to thank them for standing with me today. And again, thank you for being here. And with that being said, it is my honor to introduce someone in this Capitol. It's her first time being here, but we've heard her voice across the nation and internationally. It is, again, my honor to introduce my friend, the mother of Sade Robinson, Ms. Sheena Scarborough, and her family have driven here from Milwaukee for the first time in their state capital to tell us why they support this legislation. Ms. Scarborough.
A quick note, as Sheena Scarborough, the mother of Sade Robinson, is stepping to the podium, we're going to do a handoff, so Sam Kramer will be with you on the live desk after we end this briefing for you, but we want to make sure we hear from Sade Robinson's mother here on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Representative Stubbs, for taking this initiative and being present to represent our Black and Brown, Indigenous people of color across the entire state. As you all know, I am Sheena Scarborough, the mother of Sade Robinson. Say her name, Sade Carlina Robinson. My angel was brutally murdered, dismembered, and disrespectfully spread across Milwaukee in the worst possible way you can imagine. The things that we have gone through as a family, all my family stands behind me. My good friend, Tanisha, Jania's mother, Jania Walker's mother, they stand behind me knowing exactly what it's like being a victim of a severe traumatic crime in the worst possible way. A demonic devil went and manipulated my minor, beautiful angel on a first date and intentionally set up to murder her. As you all know, we just came out of a very high-profile, traumatic, brutal trial you can ever imagine that was live streamed, and everybody in the entire world is watching everything as me and my family are watching it for the first time. We are dealing with ongoing trauma daily. There's no way possible that a task force such as this for missing and murdered women, with the layers and the steps that we have had to go through throughout the entire system in the state to get this must-do justice for my baby that is still ongoing. It took an entire team and village of people for myself and my family to even be at the point where we are now. We will be going into sentencing next Friday, August the 1st, to sentence this demon and return them back to hell. The support of the legislator, as I've shared with Representative Stubbs, thank you so much for being not, only a symbol of a support of a representative that's been present since the beginning. This has been the worst traumatic. It continues to be the most traumatic thing you can ever imagine. Through my angel's legacy and her life of what she put out and what she did for the community and how she has touched so many other individuals across the world who have been impacted by what happened to her. I have developed the Sade's Voice Foundation in her name. Please visit us, on our website. There weren't many other supports during this time. I didn't really have anyone to guide me through how to even understand what I'm going through. I've never even been arrested before. Like, we've never dealt with the law system. We've never dealt with law enforcement. It's been so severe all across, and it takes every layer of both ends of the table. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter if you are Black, Republican, Democrat, religion. It doesn't matter. These are our babies. This was my daughter. She was a granddaughter. She was a sister. She had her whole life ahead of her. My angel worked 2 jobs. She had her own apartment. She is just graduating from Milwaukee Area Technical College. She had just received her Associate of Arts degree. My youngest daughter had to walk in her honor. So many things have been taken from us. She was taken away weeks before her 20th birthday. We had so many plans and so many things to do. I've worked so hard to raise 2 beautiful, intelligent daughters, and we have done nothing but put out good into the universe, helping others, being advocates, and then for somebody to come and tragically take your child in the worst way is the worst nightmare anyone can imagine. There will never be justice for my baby. Myself, her father, her sister, my family, my mom, that's her best friend, her granddaughter, like, it's unimaginable of what you have to go through. So the support, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, the task force are definitely needed. There's not even enough time for me to even share all of the multiple layers from the beginning to having to work directly with law enforcement, having to have my own family members in the community, finding most of her remains that were scattered at various parks all across the city. It took teams of people. It took a multitude. So that this isn't, at the end of the day, this isn't about, what party you stand on. We don't have enough. No, it needs to be, this is definitely a must. The mental health, our trauma, is open and ongoing. There's no amount of therapy that's ever going to heal me. I see a therapist weekly. My daughter sees the therapist as well. We are managing and doing the very best we can day by day, because I will demand justice until the day of my demise. I'm going to demand that my baby, her legacy and her light be carried out in the proper way that is needed. And I thank you, Representative Stubbs. I appreciate everyone that stands behind Representative Stubbs, all of the legislator, and Dora, how you doing? Everybody that's here, Representative Stubbs, appreciate you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please follow Shadee'sVoiceFoundation.com. I support Representative Stubbs, and I stand 10 toes behind you in this matter.
Thank you. Thank you. And next, we're going to have Angela Arrington from Wisconsin State Social Action Coordinator, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, where I'm a proud member.
Thank you so much, Representative Stubbs. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Arrington. I serve as the Wisconsin State Social Action Coordinator, as well as a chapter president with Madison Alumni Chapter for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. On behalf of our Wisconsin chapters, I want to continue to voice strong support for legislation that will lead to a task force combating the ever-increasing issue of missing and murdered African American women and girls in Wisconsin and across our country. For generations, African American women and girls have faced an epidemic of violence. They are more likely to experience homicide, sexual assault, and other forms of violence than their white counterparts, and these cases often go unsolved or receive less attention. The epidemic of violence is a complex issue with deep-rooted historical and systemic causes, requiring comprehensive and coordinated action to address. We commend our very own member, Representative Sheila Stubbs, and co-sponsors of the legislation in the last session, and really the last couple sessions, for recognizing this disproportionate impact of violence against African American women and girls, a crisis that is demanding immediate and multifaceted action. It continues to be heartbreaking for families of the victims to not see the issue properly addressed, and even worse, that there will be new victims if we don't do something about it. As a sorority dedicated to empowering Black women and girls and the Black community overall, we are deeply invested in the success of this initiative. We believe that the task force findings and recommendations will be invaluable in informing legislative action, policy changes, and community-based programming. We urge the Wisconsin State Legislature to pass legislation that will create this task force without delay. This legislation represents a crucial step towards a future where African American women and girls can live safely and thrive in our great state. Forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela Arrington. And now it is my honor to bring forth Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul.
Thank you, Representative Stubbs. Thank you to everybody who's here today. As your Attorney General, my top priority is public safety. And this legislation does two things that I think are so important as we work to make our communities safer. One is it identifies a problem that's out there. You've heard Representative Stubbs talk about the statistics, and it calls for action to address that problem. Action that can make our communities safer and that can help every Wisconsinite in every community feel safe where they live. Secondly, fighting crime and keeping our communities safe is not an individual effort. This is something that when we work collectively, we can do more to address. When we have strong communities, when we work collaboratively, those communities are safer. This legislation proposes creating a task force that brings together people with different areas of expertise from different backgrounds to work together to solve problems. The good news here is people are ready to step up. The problem now is not whether there is interest among folks in collaborating and working to identify solutions. What we need is legislative will. We need the legislators in the Senate and in the Assembly to pass legislation that will help ensure we have this task force. You know, when you look at statistics like those you've heard talked about here today, it's clear that there is a need not just for action, but for there to be an investment so that we can seriously consider these issues. And that's what this proposal does. It would provide the kind of resources we need to have a task force that doesn't just meet, but that can be effective in identifying solutions and working to provide guidance to the legislature as it moves forward. So in both of those respects, this bill is a good piece of legislation. I'm proud to be here to support it. In the last legislative session, the legislature was so close to passing legislation that would help us move forward on this issue. But we've seen there's an opportunity for some compromise in this legislative session, and it's my hope that legislators in both chambers will see this piece of legislation as one area where they can compromise, we can make progress, and ultimately we can work to make our communities safer. So thank you to everybody for being here to support this. Let's get this legislation passed in this legislative session. Thanks.
I'm going to bring forth Ms. Tanisha Howard, who is...
All right, hi everybody. Sam Kramer here, tagging in for Carl Deffenbaugh in the second hour of the Wisconsin Live Desk. We have been watching and listening to this press conference from the Capitol in Madison, hosted by State Representative Sheila Stubbs. She's a Democrat that brought forth this bill to create a missing and murdered African American women and girls task force. The whole goal of it to kind of organize efforts to investigate these cases, to bring data to a forefront, to analyze it for trends, and just kind of bring justice to these families that are going through so much, including the family of Sade Robinson, the woman that was missing in Milwaukee, later found to be murdered by Maxwell Anderson, a man that she had gone on a first date with, and a jury just convicted him of homicide in that case back in June. He's awaiting sentencing, and that's Sade's mother there in the back, Mrs. Scarborough there, that has spoke so passionately about what this could do for families that are so desperate for information when somebody goes missing from their family. We got a lot of stuff that we are tracking today, including some political news. It was the big announcement yesterday that Governor Tony Evers will not seek a third term. The timing of that is important, in that the partisan primary for that race, the 2026 gubernatorial race, is in August of next year. But in his wake, a number of Democrats tell FOX6 they are considering a run, including Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez making the announcement on Fox 6 Wake Up this morning. So a lot to unpack here. Our political reporter Jason Calvi has been tracking down some folks on both sides of the aisle today. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, plenty to check back in on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hi, everybody. Sam Kramer checking back in here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It is Friday, July 25th. Thanks so much for being with us on this new tool that we have to really just check on what is happening in our community, in our state, in our nation, even abroad. And so let's take a look around at what we are seeing across the country. We're first going to go to Scotland. This is a crowd of people gathered at an airport there where President Trump is traveling for the weekend. He's got a few-day trip out there. This is mostly to go look at a golf course that he and his family have opened there, but also have a couple of diplomatic meetings while he is over there. And it comes at an interesting time, right, when there's a lot of chaos in our nation's capital about a number of things, but most pertinently, the release, or lack thereof, I should say, of the files into the sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, in which the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president's name is included in that several times. So, nevertheless, he's looking here in Scotland that there is a crowd gathered outside the airport looking to see Air Force One in some form or capacity as the president, takes off for the weekend. From there, we're going to go to Las Vegas, and this is a hearing of the House Ways and Means Committee, of which Wisconsin and Milwaukee Congresswoman Gwen Moore is a member, actually. And so they are talking about the big, beautiful bill. Let's listen in here.
I didn't make a lot of money. When you work in healthcare as a volunteer manager in both hospital setting and in hospice, particularly in hospice, you do not earn a lot of money. My salary was very minuscule. I loved working with volunteers, and that's why I did it. And I worked in hospice for over 10 years, and I worked in hospital setting for approximately 20 years. I loved working with volunteers, and I felt that it was a very rewarding environment. Well, it was a very rewarding environment. I did not make...
We want to thank you so much for doing that, and to what Mr. Smucker said, in order to meet the work requirements for Medicaid, and receiving it. You can actually volunteer for wonderful organizations like hospice, our veterans. You can do that for 20 hours a week. You don't even have to seek a paying job, which is what's so interesting about the claims of the Democrats and what's actually the reality. But we have a lot of double dippers out there in the Medicaid world, and we have the largest fraud, abuse, and waste in the entire nation in the state of New York, where we have people that are out of 8 million people on Medicaid in the Essential Plan, 3 million are ineligible. So we have only 5 million people eligible and 3 million ineligible. It's costing us a ton of money. I wanted to get into independent contracting, but I know our time has expired. And I don't want to go over time because my dear colleague from Wisconsin said that only Republicans get extra time, and she got an extra minute. But I want to say thank you to all of you. I wanted to get into independent contractors, a little known provision of this bill that is going to be really helpful to everyone out there who wants to learn about their ability to continue to work on the side, to be entrepreneurs and independent contractors. There are benefits in this bill for you too. And thank you so much, everyone. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. I have a unanimous consent request, sir.
What?
I would like to add to the record the Congressional Budget Office report that the 2017 job tax, what do you call it? The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that the reduction in taxes, that there were almost zero companies that used it to raise salaries.
Ms. Moore, do you have a copy of that?
Can I unanimous consent to add that to the record?
If you have a copy of that, if you provide a copy of that, we'll add it to the record. So do you have a copy?
That's all I want, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for yielding.
Reserving the right to object, I do have a question. Does that CBO report indicate that the Obamacare subsidies would be stripped from our bill? Within our bill, will Obamacare subsidies that was mentioned before?
The ACA premium, they are not renewed.
They're not.
So it wasn't a matter of them being stripped. They expired, and they expired just like the 199A provisions expired. They were double standard, but that expired, and you did not help them. So that means that somebody who's door dashing, and they decide to go get the Nevada Silver Plan, their premium might go up 573%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will certainly.
Thank you, sir. And I love my colleagues, especially this one over here with the great jacket. I yield back.
We definitely allowed.
So that is Congresswoman, Wisconsin Congresswoman Gwen Moore there, doing a little political sparring with her fellow members of the House and Ways Means Committee, a committee that tackles a lot of the spending when it comes to the federal government. And they are holding this hearing in Las Vegas. You see there the fancy tourism sign in the background. Certainly, there is going to be some opposition from Congresswoman Gwen Moore, one of the strongest Democratic districts in the entire nation, over what they are debating. That is the One Big Beautiful Bill. It is President Trump's landmark legislation as it's working through the House now after the Senate passed it. So let's come actually back home to Milwaukee, where at American Family Field, it is going to be an exciting day for Brewers fans, both current and those who maybe enjoy the older teams. And let's give you a look at what we are looking at here. This is an autograph session that is happening right now ahead of a celebration of 25 years of American Family Field, of course formerly known as Miller Park. And right there, seated, still looks like he could play, Prince Fielder and Bill Hall. Let's listen in for a little bit to see if we can kind of hear what some of the fans have to say. come back to me. So again, this is a celebration of the 25 years of American Family Field. I'll bring that back up here, where the Brewers are bringing a number of players back, among them Ryan Braun, Prince Fielder, Corey Hart, Bill Hall, again, Fielder and Bill Hall seated there, to just mark the 25 years of American Family Field. Of course, it was just a couple of years ago when the Brewers, there was discussions of whether they were going to stay in Milwaukee, given that their lease was coming up in about 10 years or so, but they felt that they needed more money to actually invest in the ballpark again. First known as Miller Park, that's now known as American Family Field. There's a lot going on this weekend. So these are the autograph sessions that have began now, just within the last 10 or so minutes. There's also going to be photo sessions there at the ballpark. Then some of these players, one from each season, from 2001 all the way through 2025, are going to be guest bartending as well, all around the ballpark, including X-Golf, the barrel bars and the first and third base lines, 3rd Street Market Hall bar, as well as the alley bar. And then they're going to be, running on the field to join a current member of the roster closer to 3 o'clock. And then after the game, so they're playing the Marlins. The Brewers are, who of course, I believe, tied, if not sole owners of the best record in baseball after another series win over the Seattle Mariners. Of course, we missed out on George Webberger's if you were with us earlier in the week. Unfortunate, but nevertheless, the Brewers are still good and particularly relevant here as we approach the trade deadline at the end of the month. But after the game tonight is an alumni home run derby. And team captains are Ryan Braun and Carlos Gomez, okay, the former outfielders. In fact, the Brewers shared some video not too long ago of Braun taking batting practice with the Brewers as they were at Dodgers Stadium there in LA, taking on the Dodgers. And frankly, he looks like he could still hit and be a member of the current team right now. But among the people taking part in the the alumni home run derby again for 25 years, Keon Broxton, the former outfielder, Prince Fielder. How about this? Giovanni Gallardo, a starting pitcher. Pitchers don't really hit anymore in the major leagues, thanks to the designated hitter rule in both the National and American leagues now. But Gallardo was known to hit and actually slug really well. He had doubles, he had home runs, all while he was starting. Of course, we really only see it now from one player, that's Shohei Ohtani with the Dodgers. Okay, we'll continue on here. Bill Hall, Corey Hart, Casey McGee, and then fan favorites, Niger Morgan and Eric Thames. Thames probably was known for being this massive, strong guy. I'm sure he looks like he could be still part of the roster as well. So it is an exciting day to be out at the ballpark. Again, exciting anyway right now with how good the Brewers are, but this is part of the fan appreciation efforts that this franchise really is keen on doing. They have all sorts of sales, but they also know that the fans really feel connected to these players in the smallest market within Major League Baseball. So this is a big deal. I imagine it will be a very strong crowd out at American Family Field, again, for the game, for all the pregame festivities, and then as well for the alumni game, alumni home run derby, I should say, after the game. And actually, while we are on the topic of sports, I'm going to pull up the tag board here because the Brewers sent out this tweet earlier today, I should say relevantly recently. They're sending the hearty congratulations to Packers president and CEO Mark Murphy, who ends his 17-year tenure as president and effectively CEO, again, of the Green Bay Packers, the only publicly ran franchise in the NFL today. The reason for that? He is 70 years old. The Packers have a rule that, their top brass, there's a mandatory retirement age of 70 years old, and in comes Ed Policy, who is going to be assuming that position. He has been on with the Packers for the last couple of years, again, in the administration, the front office side there. And what's interesting is he assumes this role right about the same age that Mark Murphy did when Murphy first came in, and of course had to navigate the Brett Favre contract situation in support to make way for Aaron Rodgers, and then again Rodgers just a couple of years ago making way for Jordan Love. So if all goes well for Mr. Ed Policy, he too will have 17 years before he turns the age of 70, and then 2 will be forced to retire. Okay, when we come back, right here in the Wisconsin Live Desk, we are going to keep checking in on a number of stories happening in our area. Again, a task force press conference that's happening in Madison. But right after this break, we're going to hear from Fox 6 political reporter Jason Calvi, who has been chasing after what is now a wide open gubernatorial race in Wisconsin for 2026. The battleground is back again. We'll be right back on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hi, everybody. Sam Kramer back with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It is 2:05 on Friday, July 25th. Thanks so much for being with us again on this new tool here on our Fox Local app, whether it's on your TV or on your mobile device, which just really allows us to see and talk to people about what is going on right now in the world, in the country, in the state, and all the way down to our communities. A big story that we are following actually broke yesterday in that Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, who has served and is 17 months left in his second term as governor of Wisconsin, announced that at 73 years old, he is not going to run for re-election. It's a big announcement because of the political ramifications that come from it. The state legislature, really since 2011, has been Republican controlled, both in the Assembly side and in the state Senate side. So for Democrats to have Governor Tony Evers actually as governor has really acted as this kind of check and balance between the legislative branch and the executive branch. He has used his veto, as we have covered, rather creatively to add in policy decisions into bills that he had advocated for but disagreed with Republicans on. In one instance, he crossed out a couple of digits in years to extend public education funding for really 400 years just by conjoining two separate numbers to make a new number in that sense. So in his wake, the question now is who comes next? And we did the story last night on Fox 6 News at 9 and 10, probably saw it again this morning. There are really about 11 or so people, Democrats, that could follow up. And on the Republican side, two people have already thrown their thrown their names into the hat, I should say. Washington County Executive Josh Showman, as well as Whitefish Bay businessman Bill Berrien. And we're going to hear from some of them today as well. But really, there's an interesting discussion on who is going to come in and fill in behind that. And so we're going to bring in Fox 6 political reporter Jason Calvi when he is ready. But the names that were thrown out to us by both political strategists and insiders connected to the Democratic Party are the following. Former Wisconsin Democratic Party Chairman Ben Wickler, who again is not in that title anymore. Attorney General Josh Kaul, who we just heard from a couple minutes ago at a press conference in Madison. Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez this morning actually just announced officially that she is entering the race, which should not, frankly, come as a surprise given that she holds the number 2 position in the executive branch right now. It is, it's often assumed that the vice, if you will, the vice president or the lieutenant governor in this case, is going to step up and fill that void if they can. So she announced her campaign this morning. Former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, who had held it for Governor Evers' first term, says he is considering, you'll remember he did actually leave the lieutenant governor role to run for Senate in 2022 and lost to current U.S. Senator, the senior senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson is considering a run, and today Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, in a statement, said that he was going to pursue a run for governor in the next couple of days. But let's not listen to me anymore. Let's bring in Jason Calvi, who has been on this story really for the last couple of days, dating back in a couple of weeks that this has been rumored. So Jason, what do we know today as far as how this story is moving forward?
Yeah, so Lieutenant Governor, put out this video early this morning, 7 a.m., launched her campaign for governor. It was an edited video, so it looks like she had some heads up from the governor. She put that video out. She spoke minutes later with Fox 6 News this morning and shared her vision for why she was running. She lives in Waukesha County. She lives in the Brookfield area in Waukesha County, and says, hey, she's flipped a red seat in the past. She can win again. She did, though, in her appeal to win the Democratic primary, she did have some things that are going to maybe alienate people on the right. She called President Donald Trump a maniac. So she really had some fearful words for President Donald Trump. But again, when you try to win that Democratic primary, you're going to have to really try to get people on the left as well, and more moderates as well on the Democratic side to win that primary to move on to the general election. We're still we're a year away from the primary. But things are really heating up just hours after yesterday when Governor Evers announced that he was not going to be running for re-election.
And can you explain for people that there's a difference in campaigning based on the time of the year, right? So before the primary, who are the candidates appealing to versus after the primary should they advance on?
Yeah, so the primary will be in August of next year. So we're still a full year out from that primary when Democrats are going to pick who they want to be their nominee. Republicans will pick who they want to be their nominee. And so you're really appealing to the base of that party. When you're talking about Republicans, we heard from our one of the Republican strategists this morning. He said to win that Republican nomination, there's really one thing that you're going to need in your corner. You know who that is, Sam?
I don't. I'm listening, though.
President Donald Trump.
Yeah.
If President Donald Trump endorses you, the Republican strategist we had on today, Bill McCoshen, said that's what it's going to take to win the Republican nomination for governor. So that is going to be what you're going to see a lot of attention on these candidates, these potential candidates. Can they secure that endorsement of President Donald Trump? That's really key for the base right now for Republicans. And I can tell you that one Republican whose name we haven't shared yet, but who is seriously considering a run for governor is Congressman Tom Tiffany from up north. And he is seriously considering a run for governor. And I'm told today he's going to be taking this August recess. The House is going to be on recess for August. And he's going to be taking this recess to really consider his next steps, talk to his family about whether or not he should run for governor or continue with that safe seat. He's got a safe seat in Congress. Every 2 years have to run for re-election. Should he stay in that post or should he really give it a gamble and potentially run for governor? Would he then get President Donald Trump's endorsement? Open question, but I think if he gets that endorsement or he gets an indication from the campaign or from the Trump people that he's going to get that endorsement, I think you're going to see him running. We'll probably get that announcement from Congressman Tiffany in the next 30 to 60 days, Sam.
I was going to say, you mentioned it there. It's a safe seat. Northern Wisconsin is known as a strong conservative area. Why kind of leave that safe position, that congressman's salary, to come back and lead Wisconsin, which is very purple at this moment.
Yeah, it is very purple, and he tends to be on more of the conservative side. He was a former state lawmaker, so, potentially, I know Republicans have been very critical of Governor Evers. Let's just be honest about that. It's not been a great relationship. Yes, they have signed many bipartisan things, including the budget that he most recently signed, Governor Evers. But he's also vetoed a lot of Republican legislation on things that Republicans really were hoping to push forward. Greater tax cuts, for example. Also, for example, universal school choice, meaning that you would allow, you get rid of the income caps. Right now, there's an income cap for families to receive the vouchers here in Wisconsin to allow their children state money to go to private schools. Republicans wanted to see those income caps go away. Governor Evers had vetoed that in the past. So there's a lot of things that Republicans would like to see happen in the state of Wisconsin. And so, you can see somebody like Tom Tiffany seeing himself as a former state lawmaker, now at the congressional level, kind of marrying the two and saying he potentially could see himself as the strongest person to then become the governor because he has that experience at both the federal and the state level.
Okay, and then the last one, let's go back to the Democratic side because I see you're at the Milwaukee County Courthouse. You're going to be talking to the county executive, David Crowley. What are you hoping to hear from him today? And I'm curious, we talked about this question yesterday for Democrats, in that the last time there was this open primary, they really kind of ignored the will of the voters by coalescing behind, at that time, Mandela Barnes, who was running for U.S. Senate before the primary even happened. So everyone kind of backed off their campaign, thus kind of forcing the hand of voters. How are Democrats, kind of pitching that this time may be different?
Yeah, so we did ask that question. You and I talked about this very issue last night. And so when Sarah Rodriguez, the lieutenant governor who launched her campaign this morning, when she was on Fox 6 this morning, the anchors asked her, Donovan and Carl asked her, okay, are you going to have a repeat of 2022 where the Democratic primary for Senate, so many people were running, and at the very end, people didn't even really had a choice in the primary because all of the candidates got behind Mandela Barnes. So that was the question for her. She said no, she wants to see people have that opportunity, the primary voters to have their say. So it wasn't a 100% firm, yes, I'm going to stay in all the way to the primary, but we are asking those candidates that particular question, and I hope to ask Executive Crowley here, who is going to run. He's not officially filed the paperwork yet. He hasn't officially launched his website or anything like that, but he tells us this morning that, yes, he is planning to run for governor of Wisconsin. What does that mean for Wisconsin? The county executive here has become governor in the past. The last time was just a few years ago in 2010. The last time we had this open governor's race on both sides where you had not an incumbent running for governor. That was 2010. That was the year that the Milwaukee County executive became governor, Scott Walker, back in 2010.
And he had some fun with it yesterday, sharing the red hat that said "Make Wisconsin Great Again" with 45-47 on the side, which would seem to indicate a kind of a nod to President Trump, but also that, hey, would he throw his hat in the ring? It doesn't seem like that's going to be a thing. Jason Calvi, thank you so much for the time. We'll let you get through security up to the county executive's office to see if we can hear anything from him interesting about this race. Jason, thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, Jason Calvi there, live at the Milwaukee County Courthouse, talking just about this story that is, frankly, going to be a story all the way until November of next year. We said it last night on the air. The texts, the emails, the calls, the television and radio and newspaper ads probably aren't going to start right away, but boy, they are going to be coming before we know it. All right, we're going to step away, take a break, and when we return, we're going to actually go chat with one of our photojournalists, Jeff Frings, who is up in the Port Washington area and has some neat technology with him about a show that's going on there with 3 large sailboats. I got to get my own details here, but he'll fill us in as well. Again, you're watching the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
And we're back on the Wisconsin Live Desk. I'm Sam Kramer here in on the second hour. We've got about 11 minutes left on this Friday, July 25th, and we have covered a lot here on the second hour. We brought you to Madison, where a state representative is hosting a press conference in her renewed calls for a bill to create a task force that would help to identify trends and help families of missing and murdered Black women in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin as a whole, to kind of bring some closure to those families, but also help those on the justice side of things coordinate their efforts. We went over to American Family Field, where the Brewers are kicking off a special 25th anniversary weekend of American Family Field. They've got some alumni in. We then went to the Milwaukee County Courthouse to talk with our political reporter Jason Calvi about what is now a very interesting 2026 race for the governor of Wisconsin, now that current governor, Tony Evers, is not seeking re-election. And now it's going to change things up again as well. We're going to go to Port Washington here as I bring up my sources here. Our photojournalist Jeff Frings is live there for us at what is known as the Tall Ships Experience. Jeff, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. So we've got your drone up, which Jeff is one of our certified drone pilots for the SkyFox team. It's just beautiful shot of Lake Michigan today. But tell us, what is this Tall Ship Experience going on today?
Well, all these people standing on the dock here are either watching or waiting to get on. Let me pan over here and show you. One's getting ready to come over to the dock to take on passengers, maybe let off passengers and take on passengers. So these tall ships, there's 3 of them, and they have been continually taking on passengers, going out into the lake for a little bit, and then coming back and dropping off and picking up again. So I'm going to do a little zoom out here real quick and show you I guess they're all 3 in here now, unfortunately. Earlier, they had them out and the sails were up and everything, and it was pretty cool to see. They're still neat to see, but the other ones are over here, and I don't know if there's like what the reason for the lull is in the taking people out or having them out under sail, but this one is the Appledore. The other one is, one of them is the When If, and I can't remember the other name of the other one.
Yeah, the last one's the Liberty Clipper, as I'm looking at some information here. This is the first time that the Tall Ship Experience has been back in port since 2014, which is interesting that it's been that long, but they have deck tours, they've got daytime, twilight sails. So tonight it looks like the Appledore is going out from 7 to 9. But, you know, those of us that live in this area, I think generally most people along the shoreline know it's beautiful in port, especially this time of year. What is this drawing in terms of, I guess, tourists to the area from what you've been able to see?
It's definitely a busy little area. I mean, especially when they kind of are about to take people out or drop people off and they're leaving. But parking is at a premium. But it's busy because it couldn't be a more perfect day to be out on a boat, a sailboat like this, or really any boat, because it's mid 70s and a slight breeze. You can see the flags blowing there, and barely a cloud in the sky, so it couldn't be a more perfect day for this kind of event. Crowds are a little light right now. I don't know if, like I said, the other boats are not, they don't look like they're getting ready to go out, and this one went out just briefly and didn't have the sails up at all, so I'm not sure if it's like a different, more limited sailing experience for that one, but it's a beautiful day and they're pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can see the American flags here. So I'm no sailor, but I would imagine that's a good wind to be able to use the sails. The water is as blue as you're going to see along Lake Michigan. Grass looks green. I mean, heck, it looks like a postcard.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it couldn't be a more perfect day to be out here. I've been kind of sitting out here since the last time when I talked to Carl, and I thought, well, I couldn't ask for a better duty on a day like today than sit in a park and watch the sailboats come and go, you know?
Yeah, it's a good day to be a Fox 6 photojournalist going around and getting some stories for us. Have you had a chance to talk to anyone involved in it about why it's back?
I have not had a chance to talk to anybody yet, but one thing that kind of we discussed earlier was the kind of the techniques of what they're doing here, and they're when they're docking the boats, they have these little tenders that they're kind of almost using like a miniature version or a makeshift version of like a tugboat, pushing the boat into the dock. I can't imagine that it's particularly easy to maneuver a boat this big. I mean, I'm sure the captains are well trained and know what they're doing, but it's a big boat, and if it's normally under sail and it's got some kind of engine running it, at that point it's probably understand why you might need a little help with the little Zodiac acting as a tugboat.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got some details here. This is the Appledore 4, built, or let's should say launched in 1989, weighs 48 tons, 6-foot freeboard, the rig height as it's known, 76 feet. So, yeah, these are tall ships that are coming through.
Does it say where they're from? Where's their home port?
Yeah, this home port for the Appledore 4 is in Bay City, Michigan.
I don't know if you guys just saw that. The Zodiac literally just rammed right into the side of it twice.
I think they're trying to help it, scooch up against the pier there.
Yeah, it's just I've never seen that technique with a Zodiac as a tugboat before. Oh, he might do it again here.
And just backs up a little bit and then goes full motor in.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That was a bit more tame, but yeah, now that they're able to tie it up here, it's really interesting.
Probably got it all set.
Yeah, the mechanics of that. I'm glad that you pointed it out. The mechanics of that are super interesting. To just maneuver a boat of that size around there onto the dock.
Looks like people are getting ready to get off and come on. One other thing that I'll point out that I pointed out earlier, but it was kind of hard to see because the boat was further out, is these sails are not necessarily like sails on a regular sailboat. You see that beam right there in the center of the frame. Most sails don't have that. I mean, there are some different types of sailboats that do have that kind of a device, but not, I don't think, that big that holds the sail kind of straight out. Almost as if you have a flag and no wind, the flag will just kind of droop down. So sometimes they'll have a little device in the flag to hold it up. I think that kind of is how that works on the sail to make sure that it stays, out at attention, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I'm also looking around at all the people. I'm not sure how long they go out. I hope they have sunscreen. Nobody looks too uncomfortable. And a few smart people brought hats to block some of the sun, as you see more people that are waiting. And the umbrellas. I always love that this time of year, that, you know what, I don't want to burn, I don't want to be too hot. I'm going to bring an umbrella, though there's no rain in the forecast.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not even that hot. There's a night that breeze really is nice. I mean, it's coming off the water. It's kind of a little bit out of the northeast, and it's just it couldn't be a more perfect Wisconsin summer day right now.
Yeah, it is cooler by the lake season. All right, Jeff Rings, you don't have too much fun out there on the rest of this assignment for us, but thanks for providing the visuals. It's really interesting.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, Jeff, thanks. All right, we got a couple minutes left in show. I'm going to get my sources here lined up because we've got a little bit of breaking news. Let's head to Scotland, where Air Force One has just landed. We showed you earlier that there were crowds gathered outside of the airport there as the president gets out of town. This is in Glasgow, Scotland. And again, interesting time for him to get out of town with a lot of political drama, specifically around the release of the Epstein files, which hasn't happened yet, as the Department of Justice is actually talking to Ghislaine Maxwell to get more information out of her about, I guess, the extent of the late Epstein's actions and who else was involved, which has really just kind of bubbled up here, so much so the fact that the U.S. House of Representatives voted to get off on the August recess a little bit early. Therefore, the Democratic members of the House cannot vote to release those files. But as you see here, there's a Make America Great Again hat there. This seems to be a rather positive crowd in Scotland as the president arrives for a vacation and a few diplomatic meetings over there in Scotland. So we're coming up on 2:30. Thanks so much for being with us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Of course, never a dull day here in Wisconsin. We know that for a fact. So glad you're with us on this new tool we have. We're going to be on the air at 4. We'll see you then.